My name is Tanner Slack, and this is What's in the Water. Some background. Surface water is often used for drinking water. Some contaminants in surface water are not healthy to drink. We must use infrared spectroscopy and the nucleus magnetic resonance spectroscopy in order to figure out what contaminants are in the water. Once we identify the molecule, or the contaminants, we can filter it out and use that surface water for the drinking water. Infrared spectroscopy. The absorption of a photon increases the energy of the molecule vibration. The more complex the molecule, the more number of peaks appear. In this experiment, the IR is used to determine the certain functional groups that are present. The nucleus magnetic resonance spectroscopy. The absorption of a photon leads to the excitation of hydrogen nucleus. The more complex the molecule, the more absorption peaks it will have, and the more unique the ratio it will be. In this experiment, the NMR spectra is used to determine the number of hydrogen molecules and what kind of hydrogen molecules are present. The importance of the NMR and the IR. It is important to look at both the NMR and the IR when you're looking at the information. By looking at just one, you are unable to figure out either the number of hydrogens and what kind of hydrogens they are, or the functional group. For example, T2-panol is the only molecule that has an NMR of 9:1. You're able to figure out that it is T2-panol just by looking at the ratio. However, you will not know how the functional group of T2-panol without looking at the IR. You must use the IR in order to determine the functional group. Experiment setup. The first step in the experiment was to figure out the IR. Once we figured out the IR, we were able to figure out the functional group. Next, we need to figure out how many hydrogens and what kind of hydrogens were present, and the ratio that was present also. We did this by using the NMR. After finding both the NMR and the IR, the information was put in an NMR and IR spectrometer. A graph of the information was then created, and the peaks were formed. This is a chart for the IR. On this side, it shows the range of absorption. On the bottom of the graph that you'll see in the next slide, it has a certain number. For example, if your number had 800 or 850, you're able to figure out that the functional group was CCl. You're able to do this by looking at this chart. Here's the IR chart that I used. My example was ethanol. This is a picture of the chart that I was talking about previously. At the bottom of the chart, there are numbers. And once you find the numbers, you go back to the other chart, and you will use this to figure out the functional groups. Once you find the functional groups, you look at the chart that has all the functional groups. By looking at this, I was able to figure out that it was ethanol. The NMR charts. The NMR chart shows the ratio of the molecule. Once you're able to find the ratio of the molecule, you're able to compare it to the chart over here and figure out the number of peaks and the number of hydrogens present. By looking at this, we're able to figure out that there are two different molecules that are able to have this ratio. The first one is ethanol with a 3:2:1 ratio, and the second one is ethyl acetate with ethyl imate with a 3:2:1 ratio. These are the only two molecules that are able to have a 3:2:1 ratio. When looking at the IR and trying to find the end molecule, it's important to look at the functional groups present. For example, 2-propanol has a functional group of OH and CH. By discovering it, it allowed me to narrow down the possibilities to 4 different molecules. Without using the NMR, I'd be unable to narrow it all the way down to discover what the exact molecule is. By using the NMR, I found that there were 3 peaks with a 6:1:1 ratio. This completely narrows it down to just 2-propanol. Here is the charts I used. On the right is the NMR. It shows a 6:1:1 ratio, and on the left, the IR. By using the data at the bottom of the peaks, I was able to find the functional groups just like using the chart at the beginning. Unknown surface waters are not always healthy for people to drink. I chose tupropanol to use as the one that is unharmful. Tupropanol is very flammable and should not be ingested. Some symptoms, if you ingest too much tupropanol, are sore throat and dizziness. It is not good to inhale too much of this chemical. And this is my references for my presentation. That's it.